how and why PSG under Luis Enrique completely dismantled Real Madrid in the Club World Cup semi-final. Full tactical breakdown. Let's go. By the second minute of the match, it was already clear how immobile Real Madrid's defensive block was. You could see too many players on one flank and complete emptiness on the other. In just 2 passes, PSG under Luis Enrique isolated a winger on the weak side, with no real defenders nearby. That was the first red flag regarding Real Madrid's defensive mobility. Real Madrid chose a very strange system considering Xabi Alonso as their new manager. They played in a 4-3-3, which basically meant abandoning everything they had worked on previously. Instead, Alonso opted for a version of football more associated with Carlo Ancelotti, but his worst version. The front 3, Mbappé, Vinicius, and Gonzalo Garcia, were extremely immobile. That trio didn't press, didn't drop, didn't contribute off the ball, and that immediately caused problems. Here's an example. PSG switched the ball quickly to the flank, creating a 2 versus 2 situation. Jude Bellingham shifts over to cover for his fullback, something he did all game. Not always successfully, but it was a clear trend. It's important to note that Bellingham, not Mbappé, was the one doing this work, even though Mbappé was playing as the left winger. Bellingham was the one tracking the underlapping fullback when needed, not Mbappé, who often stayed high. That's a recurring theme. And Real's first pressing line? Completely uncoordinated. 2 players standing on the same line, unsure who should press and who should cover. Again, PSG easily switched the point of attack and find a player in the half space completely unmarked. This is already the 3rd minute, and PSG are able to receive freely just outside the box. Vinicius drops slightly deeper to give the appearance of defensive effort, but he's not really involved. Nuno Mendes, PSG's left back, pushes high up the pitch, showing his usual attacking drive. Vinicius is out of the play. Fede Valverde started as Real Madrid's right back in this match. He steps out on the ball carrier, and that opens the flank again. Look how many PSG players are now inside Real Madrid's final third. Yes, Real has a 5-4 advantage in the box, but 4 attackers in the danger zone is already a big problem. And the only player in position for a second ball is, again, a PSG player. This clearly shows how PSG could repeatedly access the half space near Real Madrid's box without resistance. Now we see Ousmane Dembélé dropping deeper to receive. This time Mbappé actually tracks back, which is probably how this was supposed to work. The front 3 helping in the half spaces, creating at least parity. But with players like Mbappé and Vinicius, that only works sometimes. Again, Bellingham shifts wide to cover his fullback, while the fullback focuses more on protecting the central channel, not the wide zone. In this 4th minute sequence, we see the clear structure, 4-3-3 shape, but huge gaps. Fabian Ruiz receives the ball freely inside the penalty area. Mbappé tracked back at first, but then stopped, and Vinicius isn't even visible in the shot. He stayed high for a potential vertical counterattack. Bellingham is out wide again. Tchouaméni drops into the back line, likely because of his aerial ability, to help defend crosses. Güler covers the second ball, but this leaves Fabian Ruiz completely free. Basic combinations by PSG are enough to reach the box. Mbappé should have tracked the runner, but it's Mbappé. Why would he? Now onto the 5th minute, Achraf Hakimi finds himself isolated again. Real Madrid's defensive idea seems to be staying compact centrally and letting PSG have the wings. Dembélé moves chaotically but effectively off the ball, and that's why fans love him. He always finds space. Jude Bellingham again gets caught between 2 decisions. He has to track a runner in behind, but he also needs to close down Dembélé, while Mbappé is doing nothing next to him. Then comes the 5th minute combination. Hakimi receives in the half space, breaks into the box, and delivers a dangerous cross. These off-ball movements from PSG are breaking Real Madrid apart. And then Real counters, finally. A promising transition, 3v2, quickly turning into 3v3. Gonzalo Garcia plays an interesting, non-obvious pass to Mbappé. Personally, I'd have preferred a through ball to Vinicius attacking the half space. But still, It's a creative idea from a young player. The shot is blocked, but Real Madrid shows they can counter and that they do have danger on the break. Still, by the 6th minute, nothing has changed. Real stays in a 4-3-3 defensive shape, defending in a medium-low block, and they continue to suffer positionally. Dembélé receives the ball in the half space and plays a deep pass, also into the half space. Here's the nuance. In this tactical setup, Jude Bellingham is usually responsible for covering those zones, but the player making the run actually starts from Tchouaméni's area and under Tchouaméni's control. So naturally, Tchouaméni hesitates. If it's not my zone, why should I chase the run? And as a result, the cross comes in. The PSG player easily beats the defender 1 versus 1 and enters the box for a simple low cross. But there's no one in Real's box to deal with it. A completely unchallenged situation. Then we see Raul Asensio, who had already made costly mistakes earlier in the tournament. Red cards, goals conceded. And now this is his first touch. Tell me, is this really a first touch from a Real Madrid-level player under zero pressure? The ball bounces off him like I received it, and I haven't played football in years. He looks up, trying to scan the pitch, but the ball has already rolled 2 meters away. You're playing against Dembélé, a monster of work rate and intensity, who just tears through the defense. You lose the ball, and this could have even been a penalty. Instead, Fabian Ruiz smashes it into an empty net. 1-0, 6th minute, a disaster. Real's first true positional attack comes in the 9th minute. They use a 3-2-5 shape, but you immediately see a huge disconnect between the back 5 and the front 5. Here's the issue. PSG pulls 6 players toward Real's 5 build-up players, and no one from Real actively opens up between the lines. Yes, the pass doesn't even go through here, but this pattern holds throughout the match. No mobility, no line-breaking movement. Real are a more vertical team, but when PSG presses 6-5, they dominate. A simple individual error by Rudiger, who misses the ball entirely. I don't know. Maybe Real still hadn't acclimatized after a month in the US? Was the sun in Rudiger's eyes? No explanation. Just look again at Real Madrid's midfield. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This trio is static. Güler pushes high. Why though? That's another question. Meanwhile, Bellingham and Tchouaméni don't shift over to the ball side. Massive gaps appear in Real's midfield. And I have major doubts about Tchouaméni's positioning as a holding midfielder. Huge concerns. PSG simply use a wall pass, break through midfield, and switch to attack. By the 14th minute, we see PSG's classic positional rotations. Hakimi, starting as the right wing-back, sprints into the central corridor, acting almost like a striker. There's zero pressure on the ball, giving PSG time to play vertical passes. What I hated from Real Madrid is how they made PSG's job easier. Why are you condensing everything into narrow triangles and diamonds in midfield? You're helping the press. It's a dream for PSG to press in tight spaces. You have the entire field, depth, width, space between the lines, and instead, you crowd into one zone. Of course, Real loses the ball. PSG intercepts. One more thing about Dembélé. I admire him not just as an attacker, but as a presser. Just watch him press. He runs at the goalkeeper, then sprints toward the defender. In one single phase, he covers 50 meters at full pace, and he doesn't stop to point or delegate. He goes all the way. Real Madrid needs a player like that. If they had one, the fans would carry him on their shoulders. In the 20th minute, Real finally tries a vertical ball to Vinicius from their own half into the opponent's box. It's a rare moment, but it doesn't lead to anything. PSG consistently finds joy down the flanks. Real leaves 16-meter gaps between the ball carrier and the nearest presser, completely ineffective. You're showing pressure, but in reality, you're allowing PSG to control possession comfortably, turn, scan, pick out a pass. And when PSG gets the ball centrally, Rudiger steps out too late, doesn't play proactively, and doesn't challenge the receiver. Another sequence unfolds. Hakimi passes forward, Dembélé receives, Hakimi is already sprinting from his own box into the opponent's. Every chain of actions from PSG flows, and every chain from Real falls apart. Now look at the far side flank. It's a 2 versus 1 in PSG's favor. Hakimi receives the ball, and suddenly it's a 3 versus 1 advantage for the attack. That's what PSG's transition looks like. Real Madrid just can't transition from attack to defense fast enough. Hakimi delivers the final pass, Fabian Ruiz handles it perfectly, and scores. Another goal, another defensive disaster. From what I understood, Xabi Alonso's plan A was to use a front 3 to match PSG's build-up, a 3x3 up top. In theory, that would allow them to press effectively, steer PSG wide, and trap them. But in reality, that front 3 just stood there doing nothing, watching PSG play through them. 3 PSG players calmly exchanged passes, centrally into the flanks, between the lines, and in behind. Equal numbers mean nothing when your players don't move. Football is 95% off the ball, and Real's off-the-ball work was a disaster. Another clear example of Real's static midfield. The front 3 try to press. Garcia steps to the ball, Mbappe prepares to cut the pass to the defender. Vinicius just stands still, taking a breather. Güler pushes up to press Vitinha, but why is no one, not Tchouaméni, not Bellingham, stepping up to Fabian Ruiz? That's squarely Tchouaméni's zone. He should press higher. Bellingham should shift across and cover behind. But neither player moves. Tchouaméni stays passive, Bellingham protects his space, and PSG calmly find the open pocket between Real's pressing block. There was a penalty shout involving Mbappe. He went down very theatrically, laying on the ground, waiting for a VAR call. But in reality, no contact at all. The defender won the ball cleanly. Just an Oscar-worthy performance from Mbappe. Nothing more. By the end of the first half, Alonso seemed to realize that if 3 forwards do nothing, you might as well just go back to Ancelotti's classic 4-4-2, where only 2 players pretend to defend. Late in the first half, Real's left back makes another massive mistake. Paris Saint-Germain is in possession, with the ball clearly visible. Garcia sees the players, but instead of tracking depth, he steps forward. If Dembélé had passed instead of shooting, Doué would have had a 1v1. The most telling moment of the match came in the 59th minute. With PSG leading 3-0, Luis Enrique substitutes Dembélé and Kvaratskhelia in a Club World Cup semi-final against Real Madrid. Yes, the tournament isn't as prestigious as the Champions League, but still, it's Real Madrid. The name alone commands respect. And Enrique removes 2 of his best players because he knows Real won't score 3 against this PSG. He saves energy for the final because this Real team is simply not a threat. That speaks volumes. To be fair, Alonso did press high at times in a 3-4-3, especially when PSG played out from the back. That forced PSG into more long balls and reduced short passing risk. Again, Real's left back makes the same mistake. Open ball, no pressure. He's level with Hakimi, who starts sprinting behind. High line and no reaction. He stares forward, ignoring what's happening behind. Loses the speed battle completely. These are basic defensive principles taught in every academy, yet they were ignored. In this episode, Barcola versus Carvajal. They start from roughly the same position. Maybe Carvajal even has the better angle. But Barcola sprints full speed toward goal, while Carvajal just watches. What's he watching? That Hakimi will chip Courtois? Sure, enjoy the view. No ticket needed. Front row seat on the pitch itself. Chaos in the box. 4-0. If we sum it up, total chaos from Real Madrid. Tactical disorganization, individual defensive errors, and worst of all, Vinicius and Mbappe offer nothing defensively. And as long as both are on the pitch together, Real Madrid will always have this fundamental problem. Drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Chelsea can stop this phenomenal PSG in the final? And don't forget to subscribe for even more in-depth football analysis and breakdowns.